Thanks for joining me. Today I want to talk about daytime photography and making the most out of going out during the day. We can't always find the time to go out early morning for sunrise or late afternoon for sunset in that golden hour, that special light that as photographers we all crave to photograph. Sometimes we're just stuck to say, well, because of circumstances, I can't go out at those times at the moment. I am left with photographing during the day. But I've learnt that during the daytime, I can still take great photos. And I want to show you today some simple steps that you can take to make your daytime photos pop. Sometimes it's just in the framing. Sometimes it's in the way that we set our camera up. And something that is a bugbear for me, something that annoys me, is that I see so many tutorials on YouTube saying you should be shooting in manual mode. Well, for me, the only time that I shoot in manual mode during the day is when I take panoramas. The rest of the time is in aperture priority because the camera will work out the settings for you. There's no need to rack your brain on if you're using a certain aperture, what shutter speed, what ISO. You can let the camera do all that for you. But also in the metering modes, and this is what I'm going to show you today. Choosing the right metering mode when you're in aperture priority really goes a long way because you've got to try to help the camera get the best photo for you. So let's jump in and I'll show you some photos that I've taken over the last few years. I've made them pop because of the way I framed them. First image here was taken in Tasmania. We'd stopped in this small town called Lorraine just for overnight as we were traveling to Cradle Mountain, and it was just too far of a drive to do in one day. And around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we went for a walk along the creek. We got these beautiful trees. I was just walking around with my camera in aperture priority mode with matrix metering, just framed it so that the path just comes in from the right and it just snakes around through the image, and I've got these beautiful cherry blossom trees and they're just flowering away. You see how I framed it? Not hard at all. It just takes a couple of minutes just to look and say, okay, well, this is the best way to frame it. I just walked a bit to the left-hand side of the path and just framed it. How long did it take me? About 4 minutes. Not much time at all. Now, this image was taken in Mooloolaba a few years ago. We'd gone there for a short break, and while my wife and daughter were shopping, because they love to do that, I grabbed the camera and I was just walking along the beach. So I set the camera up in shutter priority, set a fairly fast shutter speed of around 1/1500th of a second, just so I could capture these waves breaking onto these rocks. I can see how the waves are breaking, so I positioned myself so that these waves would be breaking just on the left-hand side of halfway. And I took around 30 or 40 images, but I got a couple of really nice images like this one here. And look at it, it looks like the wave has just curled around and it's like a mouth and it's just gobbling up the air. Was it luck? Well, yes, 50-50. All up, there was about 10 minutes of setting up, just choosing where I was going to set up. And those 10 minutes gave me a great photo. Now, this image here is quite a few years old. It was taken at St. Helena Island when I did a contract with Booking.com. I'd waited until everybody came off the boat and just framed so that I had the jetty very wide at the foreground, just going away from me. How long did it take me? Maybe 2 or 3 minutes. No time at all. Again, taken in aperture priority mode and matrix metering. Now, we're always told that we should put our subject either on the 1/3 line, but never in the middle, unless the image is symmetrical. This is a symmetrical image, and I've placed this little fisherman's hut right in the center of my image. There is nothing to the left, there is nothing to the right. I could have taken that in portrait orientation, but when I looked at it, I'm like, no, I'm just cutting out too much of the detail. I wanted to show the surrounding area, and this is something that you have to think about when you're out and about. Don't always close in on your subject. Sometimes it works, but sometimes including the area around it really helps your image. And when you're taking a photo, remember that a photo is worth 1,000 words. People will look at it and go like, wow, look at this little fisherman's hut. Look at the river around it. We've got a nice little beach in front. We've got the other side of the river where they're all mangroves, and we've got beautiful clouds in the sky. It was such an easy image to take. Didn't require too much forethought. This image here that you can see required a bit of forethought on my part, because I thought about taking it in landscape orientation. But when I looked at it, there was a lot of distraction to the right hand side. There was a lot of mangroves. I'm going to have to shoot this image in portrait orientation. And this is something that a lot of people will tell you, like when we photograph landscapes, we're photographing landscapes in landscape orientation. We photograph people in portrait orientation. Look on social media. A lot of the time you will see landscape images taken in landscape orientation. Don't let ideas constrict you. Sometimes images work out best in portrait orientation, like this image here, because we've got the jetty, we've got the path on the left hand side, and we've got this nice mangrove tree just framing that dead area. If that mangrove tree hadn't been on the right hand side of the image, I wouldn't have framed it like that. But with that mangrove tree there, it just added to the feel of a beachside fisherman's hut. This is from Sukhothai Historical Park. This image was taken in spot metering. Why? Because the Buddha statue was so dark. It was around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you can see in the background it is quite bright. So I had a choice, either use spot metering and have the statue correctly exposed, or use matrix metering and then having the statue just black. So think about not just the mode that you're using, shutter priority, aperture priority, but also think of your metering mode, because your metering mode governs how the image will be exposed. Now this one here, I was walking around, I saw these nice trees, and I did a video on the Sukhothai Historical Park, and I'll link it here, where I describe why I was interested in this image, because I thought that this was going to be a great sunset image. Didn't turn out to be. The sun was in the background and it was so dark that I tried spot metering, but spot metering highlighted the trees too much and just blew out the background. So I went to center weighted, and it gave me an image fairly close to correctly exposed, and I was very happy with it. Now, did you know that 80% of the images taken are taken from shoulder height? So people are just walking around, grabbing the camera, taking a photo. You have to think sometimes, you're looking at your subject. Is this the best way to take a photo of the scene that's in front of you? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is best to get down low, angle the camera up to give a wow factor to your image. This is taken in the Botanical Gardens at Mount Cootha at Brisbane. When I took a photo straight on, the image looked quite flat. So I just knelt down, pointed the camera up, and you can see these trees. They're just reaching for the sky. Why? Because I got down low, and instead of photographing this way, I had the camera that way. So everything looked like it was pointing to the sky. A very good way to get a wow factor. Now, I mentioned before that sometimes we shoot in portrait orientation. Although this tree looked very nice, around it, it was just very distracting. There was trees of various heights. If all the little trees around were the same height, it would have been nice. But I just want to isolate this tree to show people how nice it looked against this vast background. So think about how you take photos. So remember, make the most of your daytime photography. There's always great photos to take. You might just go to the local park and you'll be able to take a great photo during the daytime. Don't think that the best time is early morning or late afternoon. During the daytime, you can still take great photos. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. Really appreciate it, and I will see you next time.